Hi, Jason Sorrell here, Creative Audio Studios. I want to do something a little different today. Instead of showing you my artwork or showing you a new product from Creative Audio Studios, I wanted to show you the artwork that I've collected over the years from other artists. Some of this artwork I've actually purchased directly from other artists. Some of the artwork we've traded as artists, one piece of my artwork for one piece of their artwork, or print for a print, that kind of thing. And some of the artwork has actually been given to me as a gift by the artists themselves. And those pieces I tend to appreciate a little bit more. The reasoning behind that is because as an artist, I know what kind of time and energy and love goes into everything that you create, everything that you put out there. So when you give your artwork to somebody else, you're either saying basically that they will appreciate the artwork as much as you appreciated it when you were putting it together, or that the relationship you have is so strong, your appreciation of that relationship is worth the artwork and the time and everything else and the symbolism of that gift to that other person. So basically, right off the bat, I wanted to say thank you to those folks who've actually gifted me with their artwork. It's very much appreciated, and your artwork is very well cared for and very loved in my household. Now, as an artist, I think it's important that you appreciate the artwork of others, that you be an art collector. Just like with writers, writers need to read a lot to be good writers. Musicians need to listen to a lot of other musicians before they can really consider themselves good musicians. You can't develop your talent in a vacuum. You basically have to see what other influences are going on out there. So I'm an avid collector and avid patron of other artists, especially independent artists. It's one thing to have a Monet hanging in your bathroom. I mean, that Monet print that you buy at Hobby Lobby or Michael's or whatever, I mean, that's all fine and good. That shows, I guess, that you're cultured. But it's another thing entirely to really dip into the art world, to find an artist that you like, especially an independent artist who nobody knows a lot about, to really get into their story, figure out what the different pieces mean, what their symbolism is, how it was developed, and then have that piece in your home and discussing that piece with your friends. That makes you a patron of the arts, in my opinion, somebody that really digs artwork. And that tends to be what I go for when I collect. I want to have some sort of relationship with the artists that I collect from. I want to know what the artwork's about, who the artist is themselves, what the story is behind the artwork. And I want to be able to have something to say about the artwork when I'm showing it off to my friends. I just don't want it hanging on my wall and to be meaningless other than, oh, I like that picture, it's pretty to me, or something like that. So as I go through these different pieces, I'll be talking about how I acquired them and what the meaning is to me, and what I think of the artwork itself. Now, this first piece is by Donnie Manco. Donnie Manco is a tattoo artist out of Fort Wayne, Indiana. He's an award-winning, nationally recognized tattoo artist. Incredible artist all the way around. I've been to a couple of his shows, just amazed always by the different artwork he puts out, the different things he's accomplished, and I know his life story, the different things he's had to overcome in his life. You know, his mother passing away, getting away from, different influences that were negatively impacting him and his family life and everything else, and just the different things he's accomplished, the goals he set for himself, and what he's done to achieve those goals. So Donnie, very much an inspiration, very much an artist that I follow regularly, and I'm always interested in what's going on with Donnie and the different things he's doing and the different work he's put out, and the influence and impact that he's had on my life has been huge. So this piece is Jesus of Nazareth, or John the Baptist, depending on your particular interpretation of the piece. This was done in either color pencils or pastels or chalks. I just love the expressiveness of this piece. There's a serenity to this piece, and not just in the facial expression, but the way it's rendered, the way that it's framed in this circle. Just overall a very cool piece. And I look at this and I can tell in a way that this was done by a tattoo artist, because we tend to think in ovals and circles as tattoo artists, because we're thinking about how these pieces will fit on the body. So just a very cool piece, and I'm very happy to have a Donnie Manco piece in my collection. This next piece is by Chris Unsberger, and the story behind this piece, this is a print. It's the first print of 300 prints, so kind of cool to have that, the very first one. Chris has been doing artwork, fantasy artwork, for years, and most of his stuff has to do with kind of the D&D fantasy type artwork, and he's on DeviantArt now with his artwork displaying his work. This piece, actually, Chris was doing a show at a bookstore, actually called Another Bookstore, and I forget the name of the town that it was in. And Chris's art show was right before my art show. In other words, he had the month prior to mine, and then I had the next month. And when I first went there to check out the space, I saw this piece and just purchased it immediately. I think that I may have met Chris the day he was taking his show down because, of course, then I would need to be putting my show up. But this is a very cool piece. I've had it for a very long time. And what drew me to this piece, of course, it was probably the most erotic of the pieces that Chris had on display that day, but also the way that the colored pencil and the pencil work was handled in this piece. It's cross-hatching, but it's blended in such a way, I mean, not actually physically blended, although there are some areas where there's some obvious blending going on, but the cross-hatching is layered one color on top of another so that the colors kind of show through one another and create those different color blends. So it's really interesting to get up real close to it and look at it. Not only, when you see it from far away, here's this this fairy or what have you, but when you get up close to it, you look at these different color blendings and everything else, and you see that the purples and the blues and everything else, the reds, are different colors layered on top of one another. And I think that just the technique was wonderful on this piece. This next piece is by Nick Baxter, and Nick's an oil painter, and what I really dig about Nick's technique is that he likes to not only do things with color and color blends and everything else in his oil, but he actually likes to build the oil up and create different levels and different layers of oil, almost like a sculptural kind of thing with his paint. That he's laying layer on layer on layer, raising things up and lowering things and just making it have its own texture. And when you look at it from the side, you can see the valleys and the hills and everything else. He did a piece that was kind of cool. It was of Tupac Shakur, but it was a homage to Van Gogh's Starry Night. So it was Tupac Shakur with Starry Night in the background, and he actually in the oils sculpted the face and everything of Tupac Shakur. So the painting had eye sockets and a nose and everything else, all made by oil paint that was basically layered and layered and layered to create a texture, to create almost a sculptural effect. This piece has this interesting texture throughout. So not only is it this interesting sets of colors and everything else, this different thing going on, but it's also this wild texture that's involved in it. So it's not just color laid down on the canvas, but actually there's some different things going on with the way the paint's built up and laid and allowed to dry. Nick actually participated with myself and Donnie Manco and several other artists in the Broadway Street artist group or something of that nature. It was basically an outdoor festival every summer. We'd go out on the weekends and we'd have a bunch of our artwork and prints on display, and we would be doing artwork right there on the street for the people walking by, and it was a way to try to revitalize the local market in that area. Nick was always really cool, very much into different kinds of artwork, and I think this piece I traded him something for. I don't remember what piece that I gave him in trade for this one, but again, I've had this piece, another one of these pieces that I've had for a long time, and very happy to have this hanging on my walls. Now this piece is cool to me on several different levels. This is by Adam Puckett, and I think I met Adam at a tattoo convention or something, and he had these prints laying around, and I bought one of these prints. Again, this is one of those things that I had to have it as soon as I saw it. I love the way that this thing is rendered. It's not just hardline art, although there is a lot of hard lines and everything else, but it's the different levels of shading that's going on here. And this is obviously done in pencil and then toned in the printing process. But just the soft shading and the way it creates form and everything else. So not everything has to be contained by a solid line. I really dig that. And of course, there's the erotic aspect of it. There's the tattoo aspect of it. So that all speaks to me. So I really dig this piece. This piece is Eve by Brad W. Foster, and I purchased this print from Brad while he was at the Pecan Street Festival a few years back. What really attracted me to this piece, along obviously with the erotic aspect, is the way that the different ink techniques were on display in this piece. There's just a bunch of different ways that ink is laid onto this piece of paper. You've got the basic line art, you've got the heavy black shading, you've got stippling going on, and the level of detail in this piece is just mind-boggling when you get into it. There's cracks in the bricks, there's all these different little mechanical bits going on, there's all these different things. The tattoo work on the body of the girl is just a really beautiful piece, and you can look at it for a long time and not see everything that's going on here. These next two pieces are by an artist that goes by Satan's Farm, and I'm not sure what the meaning of that is. I traded these two pieces from Zach Schroeder, Zach Black of Satanic International, for a piece of artwork that I did basically for Satanic International. I was just going to give it to him, but he insisted in satanic fashion that he give me something that he thought was of equal value. So he traded these two pieces, and these two pieces he acquired as donation from the artist himself to help raise money for the Satanic International Network. This piece is a face, and it reminds me of a baboon face, obviously because of the coloring and everything else. And what you'll find in the two pieces that I have from Satanic Farm is that the guy was definitely into faces. The guy really digs doing faces and rendering faces. Now in this first piece, there's kind of a controlled chaos going on. He's keeping to a profile, but the paint is laid out in almost a very, really kind of intuitive, expressive fashion. That there's the indication of a profile, but there's something else going on there. He wants you to show that there's something else internal in that face. It's not just a standard profile. In this next piece by Satanic Farm, he just goes crazy with the paint. So there's paint everywhere. It's really expressive. It's really energetic. But what's really cool about this piece is that there's so many little faces painted in or drawn into this image that you really have to look at it. And you can spend a lot of time trying to find all the different faces that are worked into this image. So I was really excited that Zach decided to trade me these two pieces of artwork for the Demon Girl I created for the Satanic International Network. This next piece is by John Gruss, and I encountered John's artwork for the first time as prints that were being sold at a punk rock kind of head shop, Subterranean. And really cool shop, really cool owners who really appreciated the artworks. They were kind of a patron of John's. And so every time I'd go in there, I got to check out more and more of John's artwork. And one day I finally bought this print, which I thought was just awesome. I love the way that the skin is rendered in this girl's bat wings and everything else. Just really, really high-end oils or acrylics going on here. And when I actually got to meet John himself, John was doing a different kind of artwork at a different kind of show. John renders wonderful paintings, but he's very much into this erotic kind of horror artwork. But the paintings he was doing for this art show were very abstract and huge pieces of artwork and just wonderfully expressive, just an entirely different direction than this piece of artwork here. And when I talked to John at the show, John knew who I was and knew about my artwork and considered us kind of kindred spirits because we both did erotic artwork. We both kind of had a horror edge to our artwork and everything else. And he told me that the reason he did the abstract art was because he wanted to be able to show people that he could still drink with his pinky out. That he had all the classical training and classical earmarks of a trained oil painter, but that just wasn't his typical genre. So John Gruss is a very cool character, and very nice to have this piece in my collection. This next piece is by Dan Thompson. Dan maintains a vendor's space at the Renaissance Festival here in Texas, the big one. I forget the name of the city that's in every year. Dan does all these wonderful little pencil and pen drawings, and what's cool about this work, again, it's very detailed. There's a lot of things going on here. This was probably the most erotic piece he had in the entire shop. And there's these little fish rendered in almost a shading in the water and everything else. It's very childlike, very whimsical. So it's a very cool piece to have. And again, it's one of those pieces that even my children can appreciate. So very cool and just fun to look at, basically. This piece is by a local Austin artist, Chris Ferguson. I really dig comic style artwork. I mean, that's probably my main source, my main inspiration. Even as a child, I was really into comic books, and this piece is just rendered in a very comic book, very almost, if you've seen the Street Fighter 2 movie, the original movie, this is the kind of artwork they had in that movie. Not quite anime, just on the borderline, but very cool artwork, very well rendered, very hip, and I really dig this piece. It's not the usual kind of thing I go for, but I just love it. There's a sexiness to it, there's a power to it, and Chris is an incredible artist. Douglas Brown's probably one of the first artists I met here in Austin, Texas, and he brought me this print as a gift. I don't think I actually purchased this piece from him. I think he dug our conversations. He was also trying to sell his artwork on Cafe Press. I had a few more years of experience on him in Cafe Press, and we talked about a lot of different marketing ideas and everything else, and I really dig this piece. He knew I was into, girls and everything else, and this is one of his more erotic pieces, although I don't think it was the most erotic piece he had. There was one that I really, really was into, but he had no prints of it at the time, as I recall. This is rendered, he's into oils and acrylics, and this is kind of heavily detailed. There's a lot of things going on in this image, and one of the things that bothered me about this piece, of course, is that it's just so tiny, the way it was printed. And this is one of the things we kind of talked about in regards to, marketing or merchandising different pieces of artwork, is that I figured out at that time, and I was making this mistake earlier on, that you have to kind of merchandise your artwork to the product that you're merchandising it upon. So if you're doing a cup or doing a skateboard deck or doing a print, you want to make sure the artwork is, catered to that. And this piece of artwork, because you wanted to get some information in on there and everything else, is just rendered kind of small for even with the 8x10 print that it's on. But still, a very cool piece of artwork, and framed and hanging in my hallway with my other art. Now this piece is cool on a number of different levels. First of all, it's of Cthulhu, so right away it gets major cool points in my mind as far as art's concerned. But the other thing that's going on here is this is actually a piece by Derek Dishaw, who calls himself Venger Asna Satanis, and he is the founder, Ipsimus, and high priest of the cult of Cthulhu, an actual bona fide religion here in the United States with several hundred members online, a very interesting and eclectic esoteric and exoteric organization. And so what I have here is a rendering of Cthulhu, of this deity for this organization, by the organization's leader and founder. So this is, collectible, if you will, on so many different levels. What I really dig about this piece is the way that it was rendered. There was a lot of energy put into this piece, and the line work, the symbolism, everything is very energetic. Everything is very kinetic, if you will. And this is in line with the guy's philosophy. The artist, he's, having spoken with him, having checked out his organization, everything else, he's very much about directed chaos, about things just flowing and being organic and being natural, but having some sort of guide, having some sort of direction or agenda. And that can be seen in this artwork. The way it's rendered is very chaotic, very, erratic and everything else, but there's a goal, there's a purpose in what's being rendered, and each line is rendered in that direction, rendered towards that agenda, towards that goal. So not a lot of concern about realism, about symmetry or anything like that, just a concern about expressiveness and energy and the emotion involved in the piece. So very cool to have this piece as part of my collection. This next piece is by an artist, Laura Stewart, who I met in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and we actually dated for a little while. Laura did this piece specifically for me. It's kind of outside of her normal genre. When she does artwork, she's a very classical artist, is I guess the best way to express it. Very traditional, very conservative in the type of artwork she puts together. This was kind of an erotic bondage piece she was doing specifically for me. She knew this is the kind of artwork that I was into. These are the kind of things I enjoyed, and she wanted to, butter me up, I guess, a little bit. So I was very surprised and very pleased when she gave me this piece of artwork as a gift. It's just wonderfully laid out, all these different media involved in it, all these different things going on. Obviously it's a homage to an Olivia piece. It's supposed to be, or it looks like, a little bit of Betty Page in the image. So it was very cool, and I'm very happy to have this piece. Although since this piece is so radically different from the normal artwork she does, she might not be too happy that I'm actually putting it out there in the public that this is a piece of her work. But I think it's wonderful, so hopefully she's proud of it, and as proud as I am of it and having it in my collection. This last piece is by one of my oldest friends, Eric Werner, who at the time of this rendering was going by the name or title Dark Artist V, but now goes by Corvus Nocturnum, and is known as an author and a speaker and an artist in the Satanist community. This was rendered in oils. Eric is an oil artist, but there's a heavy comic book influence in his artwork, and I think this artwork is just awesome. The way the background is blended, the way that everything's rendered, the expressiveness of the piece, the wings are just beautiful in this piece. And obviously it's this angel, this fallen angel being dragged in chains back down into hell. And just a very cool and expressive piece. And there was a story to this piece where he's working on a storyline that this angel, had escaped from hell, was kind of a character in his different images, and just an awesome piece of artwork, and very cool to have an Eric Werner print, a Corvus Nocturnum print in my collection. So those are the majority of the pieces in my collection, the two-dimensional artwork in my collection. I have some sculptures and some jewelry by pieces that maybe in some other YouTube video I'll actually display that artwork. And I guess I wanted to close by pointing out that a lot of the artwork I have, I did trade with other artists for. So if you're an artist who digs my artwork, I'm always interested in trading artwork. I'm into erotic art and demons and monsters and things like that. So if you have an original piece or a print that you want to trade an original piece or print of mine for, let me know. Get a hold of me. My contact information will be in the details information on this video. Get a hold of me. I'd love to hear from you, and I'd love to check out some new artwork. In particular, there are a few artists who have pieces of my artwork that I don't have any of their artwork. Kyle Giffen, the artist who provided me with most of my tattoos, he's got a couple of my pieces, and I don't have anything by him. I'd love to have a piece of his artwork. He's an incredible artist, and I would dig having some of that on my walls. T.C. Downey, who's a good friend of mine and does some amazing artwork, both digital and traditional artwork. I know that he's been promising me a piece and he's working on it, and I'm sure I'll get it here pretty soon, but I'm looking forward to having that piece in my collection as well. So TC, get on it. And a friend of mine from college, Becky Raven, who also does some incredible artwork, and I would love to have a piece of hers. If she wants to trade a piece of my artwork for something that she's done or something that she's going to do for me, that'd be awesome. So there's my art collection, and hope you dig it.